AI coding agents have become really good in the last couple or so years. So I thought I would show off how easy it has become to start new projects using AI coding agents. In this video, I'm going to use Codex to build a new full stack and real-time app using PowerSync with basically just a single prompt. I'm going to start by using the TanStack CLI to scaffold a new project. This will basically create a new TanStack Start project that we'll look at in a quick second. Okay, now that the project scaffold is ready, I'm going to give this prompt to Codex and let it cook for a little bit. So while Codex is doing its work, I'll quickly explain what this prompt is. I have basically asked Codex to integrate PowerSync and Supabase Cloud into this project using their CLIs. So I have both Supabase and PowerSync CLIs installed and authenticated, but I don't have anything configured. I don't have any instances on either of those cloud services. I just have their CLIs authenticated. And Codex is going to have to do the work to configure and link everything from scratch. I've also asked Codex to store the database credentials in the environment file so that our running application can write the database. And I've asked Codex to use the browser to test the application, ensure that the data is persisted in the backend database, and that it lives across reloads so we know that the sync is working. We can see that Codex started by inspecting the app structure and it confirmed that it's a small Vite app. We can also see that it's looking for skills. It just used the bash tool to see what version of the CLIs are installed. And it just came up with a plan here. Now while it's doing the rest of the work, let's quickly open this in our editor and see what the code actually looks like. So this is our scaffolded app here. We can see that the Vite config has Tailwind, TanStack Start, and React in here. If we go in our source folder, we'll see the couple of basic routes that come with the starter template, the index and the about page. And we have some components here for the header, footer, and the theme toggling. We can run this app as well, and we can quickly see what the template looks like. So it's a pretty nice starter template. It's not too complicated, but it also looks pretty nice, so it's a really good starting point for agents, and it even has a light and dark mode. So as starter templates go, this is actually one of the better ones. Great job, TanStack team, by the way. So let's see what Codex was able to accomplish so far. I'm going to go into the diff panel, and we'll see some of the files that have been generated by the CLIs that Codex was using. So we have the PowerSync CLI.yaml, service.yaml, syncconfig.yaml. These are the files that PowerSync uses to configure its cloud instance. The CLI file tells the PowerSync CLI that this is a cloud project, and here are the identifiers to connect to the cloud instance. The service.yaml file basically tells the PowerSync instance how to connect to the database to consume replication logs. So we can see down here that this is basically just a template that has commented out instructions for all the different databases. And we can see that Codex just right now uncommented the Postgres section so that the cloud instance knows that it's going to talk to a Postgres database. And it's going to get these credentials from the environment when it's running the deploy. Next up, we have the sync config, and this is the file that contains the sync streams, which is how the PowerSync service figures out what data to replicate to each user at any point in time. We can see that we have a single sync stream here with auto subscribe true, which means this data is always going to be replicated to any user that's authenticated in your application. Then we have our TanStack router route tree, which is automatically generated with through its Vite plugin. We also have the Supabase folder in here with a git ignore and with a config file. Let me move myself up here so that we can see what this file looks like. This is a pretty detailed file that has a bunch of different configuration for Supabase that we don't need to go too deep into. And next to it, we also have the migration file. So this is the SQL file that's going to add our schemas and everything to our Postgres database in the Supabase instance. Okay, so looks like Codex was finally able to finish the job. We can look at its summary here. It worked for a total of 26 minutes. Throughout the process, it ran into a couple issues, but it was able to fix or work around them very smartly. So let's take a quick look at the code that it wrote. We can see that it made some changes to the Vite configuration, but the main additions were in this lib folder inside our source. We can see that we have the PowerSync schema, which is used for our data on the client side. And then we have this PowerSync file here that sets up our PowerSync instance locally. We can see that we have a backend connector here. This is what tells the PowerSync SDK how to authenticate and how to upload changes. So this upload data function here is going to pick up the changes made to the local SQLite table And it's going to make the same changes to our backend database through the Supabase REST client. The Supabase backend will then apply its row-level security policies to make sure that the changes are authorized. We can also see the Supabase file here where we are creating the Supabase client instance. Finally, in the index route folder, it has made a bunch of changes. For example, in the main app component, it has added a bunch of useState hooks and a use effect that's going to query for the authentication status, and it's going to update our local state based on it. Let's run the app and see what the demo looks like. So you can see that it has modified the starter template a little bit to add some more information about what we are building. It also has the identifiers of the project. I'm going to delete these instances right after this, so it's fine to show them here. It also has a seeded user that we can use for the demo. So as soon as we hit that, we are going to be signed in as the demo user, and we can see the entries that were created by Codex when it was using browser testing. So both of these are to-dos that were added here by Codex when it was testing in the browser. We can add our own, and we can see that it works. And if we refresh, it's going to be here. We can also go into our Supabase table here and see that all three of the to-dos were added. We can also check our parsing instance to see that we've had 2 deployments here. We have our sync stream that's replicating data to our client. So overall, Codex did a really good job of implementing everything basically from scratch, using nothing but the CLIs and the skills that are installed in here. But even then, these coding agents have reached a point where whenever they run into issues, they find some way to work around it by consulting the documentation, looking into the source code, and sometimes even patching things within the node module so that they work as expected for the time being. I'm really excited to see what you guys will build with tools like this at your disposal. Coding agents have not only made it easier to build normal apps, but they also make it much easier for you to adopt any new tool into your workflow and build things that you might not have been able to build before.